You want to buy a plot and build your own house? We'll give you insights into which kinds of plots are available and what is important while buying a plot here in Germany. Hi, my name is Ajay, and in this channel we're going to guide you on how to buy a house here in Germany. Whether online, through a newspaper ad, or by word of mouth. If you want to buy a plot, it's important to obtain as much information as possible in advance and to read the listing very carefully. After all, land for sale within a municipality is not always automatically building land. There are 4 types of land areas that need to be distinguished, which may not always be built on from a legal point of view. First of all, there is the land that is deemed as agricultural land and of forestry use. This is colloquially referred to as farmland. Such areas are sometimes far away from the supply and drainage lines of public utilities and perhaps also far from the shop in terms of any other type of infrastructure like public transport. These plots are defined in a way that they are likely to remain farmland in the future. So if you want to buy a plot of land in order to cultivate it, you can do so. However, if you want to buy a plot of land in order to build a house on it, in the future, then farmland, this type of land, is most likely not right for you. Land that is expected to be built on in the near future is called land awaiting construction, Bauerwartungsland. It is not yet connected to the supply and drainage systems for water, sewage, energy, gas, telephone and internet, etc. So it's not developed yet. In terms of status, land awaiting construction is between farmland and building land, but it's not building land yet. If you want to buy a plot of land that you can build on quickly, you should avoid this kind of a property. Although development is expected, it is up to the municipality to decide when this will happen. This can happen within a short period of time, say a couple of weeks, but it can also take years or even decades. If you buy a building awaiting land as a plot, then it is a speculative plot, where it is not certain when a house may be built on it. Knowing the type of land is also important for financing. For example, in the eyes of the banks, land awaiting construction is the same as farmland. Therefore, it'll be almost impossible to find a bank that'll finance this land with a construction loan. One step further is the raw building land, Rohbauland. These plots are also not yet developed. That is, they have no connection to the municipality's utilities. However, what distinguishes raw building land from land with a building permit is that the municipality has already advertised it as building land. The municipality has therefore approved the building use. Land that is ready for building, baureifes Land, is land that can be used for building under current conditions. If you buy such a plot, it is already developed, hence connected, and there are building rights available. On land that is ready for building, there are also no natural obstacles anymore, such as large trees that could hinder the construction of a project. Building land can consist of several plots, and these individual plots are then called building plots. Since you are buying a plot of land that is virtually ready to build on, it is also the most expensive type of land. But you can start building right away, after obtaining planning permission, of course, and do not have to wait until it has been approved as building land or its development. In contrast to farmland or land awaiting construction, land ready for construction can be easily financed with a banking loan. Once you found a plot of interest, the next step is to inspect it. You should not buy a plot of land that you have not seen in person beforehand, because there are many things to consider that can make building a house easier or more difficult afterwards. We put together a couple of points that you can use to examine your desired property and ask the seller or real estate agent very specific questions. It is, of course, up to you individually how you weigh those aspects individually. It also depends on how you want to use the property in future, whether you want to live on it yourself one day or whether you want to build a multi-party house on it. The location of the property is the only criteria which you cannot change after the purchase. Hence, it is the most important factor while buying any real estate. Plots on slopes or next to water, for example, require different preparation than normal plots when building a house. Slopes may need to be cleared, and close to water, a basement might not be that good of an idea because it's difficult due to the higher groundwater level. Also pay attention to whether the plot is conveniently located for you and fits to your requirements. For example, are there shopping facilities for daily needs, schools, doctors nearby? Do you have to drive far to reach them? If so, is that what you want? Is there perhaps a busy highway nearby, or is the property in the vicinity of an airport? All these things, I think you should need to gather and make a list of requirements, what's important to you, what's nice to have, what is a must-have, and then cross-mark and tick-mark on what kind of criteria this plot actually fills in. The size of a plot should also influence your decision whether to buy it or keep looking. The size should suit your plans with regard to house and garden design. After all, the size of your plot will influence the size of your home, which is the living space, as well as whether you can build a garage, carport, or a garden shed, for example. This also should be part of your requirements. How large should the living space be? Should there be a garden? Should it be south, north, west, east facing? These kind of things. In addition to the location and size of the plot of the land, the condition of the soil also plays a supporting role in the selection of a plot of land, pun intended. Soils with higher clay or loam content, for example, so-called cohesive soils, are not so well suited for building a house on. Under heavy load, this type of soil tends to deform, and in the worst case, the house could sink or even crack a bit. Sometimes you see large cracks in newer houses. That's one of the reasons. Non-cohesive soils is somewhat coarser grained than cohesive soil. It usually consists of sand or gravel with different grain sizes. If this soil is nice and firm, it is best suited to supporting your house. It's also advisable to find out what happened to the property, what happened in the past, what was it used for. Was there a company using oil-based ingredients on it before? If there are traces of oil or residues of hazardous substances such as asbestos in the soil of the property, these must be removed. And trust me, this can get expensive. If in doubt, I have a soil expertise prepared by a specialized engineering firm for a couple of €100. It's generally recommended that you buy a plot of land that has already been developed. If all the lines for energy, water, sewage, telephone and internet have been laid, you can literally start building directly. If the plot has not been developed yet, it's probably a lot cheaper, but you'll have to pay a share of the development cost. And you'll also need to factor in the waiting time until all these things have been settled. How high these costs are is going to be determined by the municipality. You'll have to calculate whether it is financially worthwhile and whether you can still save money despite the development and waiting cost if you buy an undeveloped plot. It's also important to look at what kind of plants are growing on the property or next to it. Large, healthy trees, preferably fruit trees, are certainly an asset and a source of shade for a property. But if the tree doesn't fit into the planning concept by the municipality, it must be removed. You often need a felling permit in addition to that. Also, not every tree may be simply just cut down. Shrubs or berries at the edge of the property also have the advantages and disadvantages. They can be a screen from the neighbors and delicious ingredient for a fruit salad, but they tend to grow uncontrollably and may end up in more work than fruit salad. If you haven't found any downsides with your plot so far, you should take a look at the municipality's development plan, in German Bebauungsplan or B-Plan. It'll tell you whether the construction for your house can be restricted under certain conditions. For example, you'll find information in the development plan about the distances which must be kept between the houses and the plots, how high the houses may be, how many stories they may have, or what kind of shape the roof may have. If the municipality doesn't have a development plan, you will be allowed to build your house similar to the houses in the neighborhood. Of course, there's a rule for this. Have the description in below. Another important factor is the neighborhood and the neighbors themselves. If you want to buy the property and then live there by yourself, you should get on well with your neighbors, immediate neighbors. Neighbors can become your best friends, but also can make your life miserable. So if you see your potential neighbor on the neighboring property, approach him or her courageously but politely and ask how the place is, like for your kids, for example. This short conversation will give at least a first insight, a first impression of the neighborhood and the neighbor. If you like the property, considering all the factors mentioned, the purchase process can begin. Here, too, there are a number of things to consider. Here's a list of things you need to check. First, it's the land register. To ensure that you are not buying a financially encumbered property, it's advisable to take a look at the land register. I already made a video on this, on how to read the land register. I'll link it on top. In the land register, you'll find information about whether there is still a land charge for a financial institution or another company or another person, and also about whether someone has been granted a right of first refusal. Second, check the purchase contract. About 2 weeks before the final purchase contract for the property is signed, the notary, who's usually appointed by you as the buyer, will give you a draft version of the purchase contract. In this contract, you'll find information about the size, location, and price of the land you want to buy. It'll also state whether there are any buildings on the property. If the information in the purchase contract matches the information from the previous discussions with the seller, you can buy the property. If you've got any doubts, it's better to have the draft contract checked by a lawyer. Next step would be financing the plot. This step should be done in parallel with the notarization process. You should never sign the purchase contract if the bank has not sent you a signature-ready contract. In the worst case, you will not get financing from the bank, and at the same time, you'll have signed a binding contract for the purchase of the land. You can only get out of this purchase contract with difficulty, and in most cases, you'll be liable to pay for any damages caused. Include the ancillary cost. In addition to the cost for the plot, there are ancillary costs. These include land transfer tax, which is between 3.5% and 6.5% of the price of the property, depending upon federal state, notary and registration fees, around 2%, and possibly broker's commission, anywhere between 3.57% and 7.14% of the property price, depending upon where you're buying the plot. If you need support in getting your plot financed, please drop us a message. You'll find the link in the description below. Then you have the notarization. The final purchase contract must then be certified by a notary. After signing the purchase agreement, the notary also takes care of all official approvals and changes which need to be done in the land register. He or she will ensure that you're registered as a new owner of the property. If you're financing the property with a loan, the notary will also notarize the land charge and the mortgage on the property. We also have a video on the process of notarization, which you'll find there.